Welcome guys, thank you for watching this video, but before we proceed, do not forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this video, share it to all of your friends, and also check out the description for further information guys. And now, let's get into the video.
Alright guys, so welcome to today's anime Battlegrounds video, and that's our second part. Thank you for your overwhelming support on the first part. I'm really happy that you guys are enjoying the series right now, and I'm going to, of course, produce more episodes on that one. And yeah, so just give me suggestions on what I can do next. So I'm really happy to read all of your suggestions. So I've done a what was it? Yeah, so I have asked for suggestions regarding the character selection. So ask for a possible character we could start working on in near future. And many of you have suggested many characters, guys. Thank you for that. First of all, I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm just gonna look through that, and I'm gonna just pick one character later on, and then we are going to create that character. So the character creation will not only deal with the character's attacks, but also with the character's appearance. So if the character has any accessories, we will be creating those. If the character has any hair, face, well, maybe not face, but hair, we will be creating that one, and so on. So we will really try to do everything from scratch without any free models and such. Alright, so with that being said, let's try and lay the base in today's video for the character selection later on. So, if you guys have played Anime Battle Arena, I think that's the name, so ABA, you usually just play, and then you are able to pick your character right here above. So right here above, we are supposed to have GUI, which makes you select some characters, and once you have selected your character, you can just head right into the gameplay, into the fighting, etc., and you can just start fighting with your character. And I think that I'm not going to do it that way, so I'm gonna try and mix the idea of Anime Mania and AVA together. So I'm gonna make these characters you are able to play, so I'm gonna make them, let's say, buyable. So you need to buy them or obtain them in any way. That can be done through buying, of course, but maybe in the near future I am motivated enough to show you guys how to, I don't know, maybe create different game modes in which you can just obtain special characters, for example. And if you have any suggestions regarding that topic, regarding obtaining characters, then feel free to suggest them, of course. But yeah, so you need to unlock your characters, you need to obtain them, and then you can select them in your inventory. So that was at least my thought about it. So just tell me what you think about it inside of the comment section, guys. So feel free to comment your opinion regarding my idea that characters should be obtainable through buying, through playing the game, etc., and not just not just being able to select them right away. So you actually need to do something for them. I don't know if you're able to play any character in ABA, probably not. So do not misunderstand me at that point. But I really want to make them like maybe summonable, buyable, such as an Anime Mania. So I'm gonna try and mix them both. So just tell me your idea about it, and I'll look forward to reading your comments, guys. Alright, so enough with the talking, now let's get into the video. Alright, so since we are going to do some kind of inventory system at this point, we will need to script that, of course. So let's create a script called data store, and do not worry, we will work on this GUI soon. So let me disable this one right here, and now let's move on with our data store. So we are going to create an inventory system which is going to save our inventory basically, which holds characters. so characters which we are going to play. Okay, so the first step when scripting a data store is to create a variable. Well, of course you do not have to, but I'm going to create one, and then refer to the data store service by doing game and then calling the function get service and then calling data store service. And the next step after that is to get a data store. So get data store, and inside of that, or inside of these brackets, we can just enter a name for a data store. Every time you change your name, you basically reset your data because you try to load and save your data on a completely new data store. So keep that in mind when you just want to reset all of the player's data. Then then you can just change the name of your data store. So that's basically the solution for your problem. Okay, get data store. Let's call this one data store 1. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, every time when a player joins, so game, players, so we are referring to the players tab right here, which of course stores all of the players which are currently in game. Then dot player edit. So this is an event which fires when a player has been added. And now inside of these brackets right here, we can enter any name for an argument which basically represents the player which has just joined. So for every player who has joined, so what are we going to do for them? So for every player, so we are going to create a folder. So folder equals instance.new. So we are creating a new instance, okay? And in our case, so the first argument is the class name of your instance which you are going to create. In our case, it is a folder, and as you can see, instance new. Okay, you're not able to see that because OBS is not recording it, but instance. So there's a tab right here which basically describes this this instance.new thing. So instance new brackets, and then the class name as your first argument right here, and the second argument is the parent, means the place in which you are going to put your freshly created instance into. In our case, it is going to be the player. And let's call this folder inventory. All right. So we now have a folder called inventory. And in that folder, so in that one, we are going to store all of our inventory entries, which are, of course, going to be our characters. Okay. Now, in order to be able to load that data, so in order to do that, we just need to local load it data. So we are creating a new variable, and we are telling the script that this variable is going to contain, or is going to have our loaded data inside, or it's going to hold our loaded data. So that's better. Player user ID. So that's the way in load your data. So you are referring to your data store 1, if you guys can still remember, and then we are calling this function called getAsync, which is basically just loading your data. And so you may ask, how is the script able to recognize to which data it is supposed to load? So you guys need to you need to consider that many players in your game, or at least hope so. Let's hope that many players try to save and load their data on this data store, and there must be something which makes all of these data differ from each other. So there has to be some kind of key which makes the data store identify your data as your data. And we have our user ID right here, which is our key, and since the user ID of a player is unique, it is pretty suitable to be used as a key. That's the reason why we use the user ID as a key, because it is unique. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Okay, now one more thing. Success error message. So we are creating two variables, success and error message, and we are going to wrap. So we are going to wrap everything after instead of a p call. So what does a p call do? Basically, when you script something and you encounter an error, then your whole script just pauses and breaks. And well, errors and such happen often when you try to do something with data stores, etc. And therefore, we are going to load the data within this p call, because it might happen that there are some issues with loading the data, and then your whole script just breaks because of that. And well, that's not good, guys. That's not good. Therefore, we are going to wrap this in sort of a p call. And in case something bad happens, yeah. So in case of that, your player has to be without data, you know. But if a player is unable to reload their data, then it most likely is ROBLOX's fault, because, well, you're basically accessing a service which is being offered by ROBLOX, and not being able to load the data basically means that the service is probably unavailable. And if the service is unavailable, then many other ROBLOX games are affected as well. And there is basically nothing you can do about it. Okay. So, okay. Success error message. So, let's get rid of this. And yeah, load it. Equals data store get async user ID. So we are going to leave this variable empty at the beginning, and we are going to override it down here. So why are we doing that? I'm gonna tell you soon. Okay, yeah. Well, there is basically no reason we could even just, yeah, never mind. Let's just do it this way. And now we can basically check if there is any data. So, yeah, if there is any data, so if loaded, so if there is anything which is being held by this loaded variable, then, so if there's data, then we are of course going to load the data. So we are going to do the process which we consider as loading. Basically, the data has already been loaded. It is just not accessible to other scripts at that point, and we are going to make it accessible. So remember that folder we have just created up here. And if you have watched my tower defense series, then you guys probably know that the inventory system in that series was pretty much the same. So we had a folder which yeah, just stored some int values, which basically were entries and represented the towers. And we are going to do the same for our characters in this AVA tutorial or Anime Battlegrounds tutorial. And yeah, so we basically just need to loop through this loaded data, because this data at the end is just going to yeah, hold the information of all of these entries or values which are inside of the folder. So information regarding the name and yeah, basically just the name, because as we've already said, these are just entries, and an entry yeah, only needs its name, I think. Or at least I would say that. Okay, load it. So, as we have already said, we are going to loop through this loaded thing. And yeah, local x instance.new. So we are basically creating another instance now, which is going to be an int value. So I'm gonna use int values as an instance to represent all of these character entries. And as we've already said, we want to store this inside of our inventory folder. Okay, Axe name is basically v, because v is, well, we did not script that at this point, but v is going to be the name of the value which has been saved earlier. So it might sound pretty confusing, but it will get more clear. I promise it will get more clear once we have scripted the saving method or saving process. And yeah, so that's already it. There's nothing else we need to do for the loading process. Okay, now to the saving process. So function save player. So why am I wrapping this inside of a function? Yeah, so we want to save when the player leaves, and maybe we want to add an autosave in near future, who knows. And we also want to save when this bind close thing happens. So if you have followed my other videos, or yeah, if you just follow my channel overall, then you guys will probably know about it. So this bind to close thing, which basically means that the game is close to shut down. And I have made the experience that, wait, game players, player removing. So there's this player removing thing as well, which is basically the counterpart to player edit. So this is an event which fires when a player leaves. And I have made the experience that when I try to put a save function or just a saving process method whatsoever inside of a player removing function right here, then it just doesn't work. And bind to close did work for me, and therefore I'm using bind to close. But wait, game get service, run service. So making some small exceptions, yeah. So this studio. So I'm basically checking if if the player, first of all, in the first place, is leaving, and if the whole session right here is not in studio. Because if it's not in studio, then it is in game, and as I've said, I have only made that experience that this save function does not work with player removing, so I only have made that experience in studio. But in ROBLOX, it did work. So in the normal ROBLOX games, it does work. And therefore, I'm just adding this exception right here. So save PLR. And the same thing here again. So this argument represents the player which is just leaving. And this run service, yeah, it is just basically the run service. And we can call this function in order to get to know if the session currently is in studio or not. Let's copy this one and let's do the same right here. So if the session is in studio, then we want to continue with bind to close. So this one will happen in the actual game, and this one only happens in studio. For those who have already understood. Okay. Yeah. So since we have bind to close, we do not have any argument which represents any player. Therefore, we need to loop through this players tab. So I, PLR in pairs, and now instead of these brackets, we enter the path of the instance we want to loop through. In our case, it is this players tab. So game, players, and now we can either do get children or get players. So I'm just gonna do get children. And yeah, so PLR basically stands for all of the players, and I basically stands for first player, second player, third player, etc. And now we can just call this save function on PLR. Okay, now to the saving. So how is the saving supposed to work? Let's create an empty table right at the beginning. And we are, of course, going to fill up this table with information. And that information, so the information which is going to be saved are, or is, or are are the names of our values which are inside of the inventory. So you guys are probably confused at this point, so you basically question what kind of values? So why are we supposed to store any values inside of here? Let me just demonstrate you. So let me add some int values. Okay, so these are entries. Okay, so these are entries. And if you call this one Luffy, for example, and if you call this one Mihawk, and if you would call this one Naruto, basically, then you would have 3 entries, okay? This entry basically stands for Luffy, this one stands for Mihawk, and this one stands for Naruto. And this whole thing is going to represent your inventory. So your inventory basically contains a Luffy character, a Mihawk character, and a Naruto character. That's basically what these int values do express. And what this data store script now does is that it is going to save the names of those values, okay? And later on, when you rejoin again, it is going to load them. And loading means that in a totally empty inventory folder, as it is right now, it is just going to do the following. So it is just going to re-add all of these values which have been saved with their names. And as we have already mentioned, these values represent your inventory at the end. Okay, so I hope that this was more clear to you guys and that it helped. Let's just move on. So, as I've said, we want to save the entries, let's say, from our inventory folder. So where is our inventory folder located? Yeah, it is up here, directly inside of the player. So, player, wait for child inventory, and now get children in order to get all of the values inside, you know? So basically, let's say that this is our folder and this is one of those values. So this is a child of this parent. So that's basically how Roblox calls them. You can also call them content or anything. So my past videos, I really like to call them content because children sounds a little bit misleading, I think. Well, at least for me. And content is a more suitable term in my opinion. So parent and content, or yeah, never mind. Okay, so we are basically getting or looping through this inventories folder, and we are, or in the meantime, we are just having the opportunity to do, or to just work with all of these single values. Okay, and as I've already said, we want to save their names. Therefore, so I have set up this table which is going to store the names at the end. So save table. Now, so save table, and now inside of these brackets we are going to enter the spot to which it is going to write something. So if I would add 1, come on. So let's say that we have a table which is not empty, which already has something or some things written in. So doing this, so as I've already said, this defines the spot, and this defines what is going to be saved inside of that spot or entered inside of that spot. So spot 1 is this one, and instead of ASD sat, it is just going to save the 3. Because that's basically what this code expresses. So it is going to enter the number 3 in the first spot. That's basically what it is going to do. And now, by doing so this hashtag save table, we are basically receiving all of the spots, of the current spots of our save table. And right now, those are at 0 because there is no entry. Now, if I would do this, then there would be 2 because we have this one and this one. Doing so, yeah, so doing that would result in 5 spots. So this would turn 5. And since this one is empty, we cannot just make the 3, or in our case, the name, save at the zeroth spot. Therefore, we need to add this +1. So it is going to save v.name in the first spot. And then it is going to loop again. And now you need to consider that we have already added one name from the past loop, means this one is now at 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2, so it is going to save the next name at the second spot. And then after that, it is going to do the same and save the name at the third spot, because we now have 2 entries plus 1, which is 3, and therefore it is going to save the name at the third spot. And just so on. So I hope that this was clear to you. And now after doing so, we can say data store, set async, and now the first argument is the key, which I have explained, or at least tried to explain earlier, which is our user ID. So player user ID, and a second argument is the thing, or the data which we want to save, which is our table right here. And that's it. So that's basically it with the data store system. I hope that this one works. Let's just check it out. Let's see what it does. Okay, so let me add some int values so you guys were not able to see it, but I just right-clicked on the inventory, on the inventory folder, and then I went down to insert object. So you're not able to see it because OBS doesn't want to record it, but there is a button called insert object right here at this height, and you just click on it and then select int value. And now let me call this one Luffy, and let me duplicate it 2 times, and let me call this one Zoro, and the other one Sanji. Okay. Now let me stop this whole thing and see if it has successfully saved. Let's hope so. And it did. As you can see, it did successfully save. Alright. So we have just, done that. Okay, perfect. So, and once a new tower has been obtained, so once a new tower should be added to the player's inventory. So basically what happens, or what will happen, is that a new int value is being created inside of the inventory folder, and that new int value just receives the name of the character, which is going to be assigned to the player now. Alright, now to the GUI. Character selection, let me call this one menu. Let me call this one inventory. And let's work on this one for a moment. No. Okay. So since we have no character done yet, so since that, or because of that, we are not able to, to add an actual representation of those characters. So we need to create these characters, and then similar to my tower defense here, so similar to that, we are just going to clone viewport frames inside, which will display the character, and then you're able to click on that character to just select the character, and you can just play game modes, etc. Okay. Alright, so I would say that this is it with the video. In the next video, we could move on with creating our first character. Well, I said could. I still need to see. But that's it with the video, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, share it to all of your friends. Also, sorry for my language. Well, I'm not a native speaker, and I'm sorry if I'm sorry if it is some kind of burden for you, maybe. So if you're having a hard time understanding what I'm trying to describe, but I would say better than nothing, you know. So at least I try it, and it is better than nothing. Okay, so thank you for your support. Take care, and see you in the next video.